Jared Ginsberg of Class Act Sports. We're here at my former high school, Benmore JFK, to welcome Adam Schefter and Steve Levy of ESPN. Welcome them back to their alma mater high school, Benmore JFK as well. It's going to be a great time. The JFK student body put together a great event. They're raising money for some scholarships and other great causes. Stay tuned for the exclusive coverage at ClassActSports.com.
So now, I ask you to join me in welcoming back to Kennedy High School, Steve Levy and Adam Schefter.
Steve, I know you've mentioned your illustrious floor hockey career. Yeah. Other than that, what role did sport play in your life? Were you rabid sport fans, casual sport fans? What role did sport play in your lives?
Yeah, I was a huge sports fan. And my 4 years in high school here were the 4 years the Islanders were winning all 4 Stanley Cups. Of course, the unfortunate part of that was I was a Ranger fan. But the point is, being a sports fan, we're into the games, and back in the old days, the Nets used to play on Long Island. You remember that? Some of you remember that? See the throwback uniforms they wore the other night? The Nets, right? They had New York, the old ABA uniforms. So, diehard sports fan, and went to as many games as I could go to. With my family or with friends. And the funny thing about that is we're expected as professionals now in what we do for a living to be impartial. And people always say, somebody just asked you outside, who's your favorite team? Yeah. And I can't speak for Adam, but I don't really root for teams anymore. You root for people. Athletes you've come to know, you root for the good guys, and regardless of what team they play on, you want them to do well. Now, I would still like to see the Jets win the Super Bowl in my lifetime. It's really about the games, the drama, and the theater, and that's partially how we're able to be impartial on the air. But nobody grows up being impartial. You grow up rooting for a team and living and dying with their victories and losses, but then when you become a professional in the business, you're not really allowed to let that come through.
I couldn't have been a bigger sports fan when I was in high school. Loved the Yankees, loved the Islanders, loved the Jets, loved the Knicks. It meant so much to me, and I think it launched me and propelled me into the field that I went into. And you don't feel that way about sports now. You view it in an entirely different way, I think, than you did when we were in high school. And the other part here is, of course, is participating in the teams. I ran track, and I was on the basketball team, and I was talking to somebody before, I had a coach. We, in 11th grade, the banner was hanging up in the gym just so we won the conference championship in 1984. And I didn't play very much at all. I was the last guy on the bench. But it was so important, and we took so much pride in doing that, and worked so hard to do that, and it meant a lot. I think it instilled a lot of the work ethic that I have today, learning from how hard we worked back then.
What is a day in the life? First, we'll start with Steve, because I think your jobs are very different. While you're in the same industry, they're very different. We see you on television. Some people think you show up 2 minutes before Sports Center, a little makeup, and read the teleprompter.
Well, one of the differences between Adam's job and my job is, I don't have any answers. I ask questions, and Adam provides answers. So that's a big part of the difference in our jobs. But, my day in life, I go to work at 5 o'clock at night, which is a very odd way to make a living. And I get home on average, I would say, between 2 and 2:30 in the morning, every morning. So hours-wise, it is not your typical. But I've never been a 9-to-5 guy, so working nights has never bothered me. In fact, when I started at ESPN, it was so long ago, back in '93, the overnight show was done in Bristol. It was on at 2:30 a.m. Eastern time, and it was only a half hour, and we got every score and highlight in, which is amazing, because now we do 90-minute and 2-hour shows and can't get every highlight in. There's so many sponsored elements and long-form programming and features and those kinds of things. So So that's how the day part has evolved, or night part for me. But I got to tell you, I have never dreaded going to work, and that's the wish. That's my takeaway for you, to go into whatever you want to do and enjoy what it is that you do for a living. I love going to work. I've never said, you know what, I wish I didn't have to go to work today. And every time I pull up into the parking lot, and every time I leave, I'm like, I'm the luckiest guy ever. I get to work here every night. People treat me nicely, and I get to enjoy what I do every single day. So the mascots are not running around campus every day. Okay? And we do write our own material. The Sports Center anchors, we write our own material. Adam obviously wants this stuff, but we do write our own material, but we do get a lot of help. Like if you see me out in a sports bar, I don't know a lot of sports trivia. Like people assume we know everything. We have research people who do know everything. Get them in the trivia contest. Leave me out. So we get a lot of help. We've got an incredible support staff system. And what keeps the place going is the energy of the young people. It is the production assistants who are 22 and 23-year-old. Hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we look at it from a different way? And the energy in the building, I think, shows up on the show when the opening tease rolls at 11 o'clock a.m.
That's a great answer. I mean, he's right. I feel the same way about my job. I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. My day's very different. I have the fortune of having a camera in my house. So I don't ever encounter traffic going to work. There's no problems finding a parking spot. In my drive every now and then there is actually.
So the books are real.
Books are real.
Okay.
Books are real, pictures are real, everything's real. In fact, I have a real dog that sits next to me on the couch during every live shot, and that dog knows every one of my phone conversations, knows all my sources. It's great. I work from home. It's one of the great parts of my job. One of the down parts, and Steve and I were talking about this before, is literally at 5 o'clock I got a phone call, and I go, I really didn't want this to happen. I talked with Brad about the fact that Peyton Manning may get cut this afternoon, and would it be a problem for tonight? And it wasn't going to be, fortunately, and it all came down Tuesday, and I thought, we're in the clear. We're in the clear. Thursday night's going to be pleasant. Get to go to the high school, relax, enjoy it. My friend Steve, my family in the audience, come back and come visit someplace I haven't been in 25 years. And it was not like that. It got ruined. And so I've been working on the story since about 5 o'clock. And I don't think it's going to come to fruition tonight, but I can tell you this, if it doesn't break earlier, it'll break sometime in the next 4 or 5 days. It'll be a big story.
And you will say that you sort of knew about it first. You knew something was going on in the NFL.
So there's always, a lot of times, particularly this time of year, there's always things going on. Always. Like last night, my wife was sleeping and I was in our bathroom on the phone till 12:30 in the morning. And on the phone with various people trying to figure out everything that's going on in the NFL now. And this morning doing live shots. And it's just very unpredictable. Whatever they need. If there's breaking news, I'm at the mercy of them. And I was just thinking, literally, if this story pops tonight, I'm going to be on the phone doing hits into ESPN News. But I wouldn't trade it for anything else. It's what we do. It's what we love. It's what we feel passionate about. And it's an honor to do what we do.
For just to piggyback on something, a source. You know, we have a lot of students who take journalism classes and they hear the word source. Mm-hmm. Can a source be anybody inside the organization?
Oh, sure. But there are sources that are a lot more reliable. You can speak to, what I found over the years is many times, sometimes there are equipment people that know everything that's going on. There are players who know nothing that's going on. There are assistant coaches who know nothing that's going on. I remember back in Denver in 2001, I got wind of a trade that was going to come down. At the time, it was a big deal that the Denver Broncos were going to trade their running back, Clinton Portis, to Washington for Champ Bailey. And I knew the story was coming. And I wrote it in the newspaper. I was flying back from the combine in Indianapolis, and the Broncos running backs coach was on my flight. And he walked over and he said to me, we got to Denver and we're on the tram together to go to the parking lot. He picks the paper. He goes, what are you coming up with this garbage from? He's a running back coach. I mean, I had no idea. So there are different sources for everything. And I think the bottom line to it is, over time, you build up and develop relationships where people trust you and you trust them, And if you build up that trust and you trust in them, most often, you're going to be rewarded. But there are times when you're not. You're going to get burnt by it. And so it's about, like in any line of work, relationships. And if you treat people fairly and do right by them, they're going to treat you fairly and do right by you, usually.
Yeah, a couple of days ago with Peyton Manning, I see Mortensen.
Yep.
Why not Schefter?
Well, I'm glad he got the story. And we spoke that day, and I said to him, because he had been talking so much to Peyton leading up to that, he knew everything. And I said, you're going to get this story. I feel so sure. And to be perfectly frank, the one thing I don't want to see is that another network gets it. I was very happy with that, very happy.
So you guys have like your own, turf, so to speak, or?
I think we have a friendly count. He has been incredibly gracious to me, welcoming me there, and we have a first-rate professional relationship, great. And I have all the respect. He's a pioneer in our industry, and I'm happy and honored to be working with him. And we really have a great working relationship. Great.
And I can say, from a different perspective, these guys go out of their way to protect each other. And everybody's very careful as to say, whose story is what. We're all on the same team, but yet you want to make sure the guy is credited, the proper guy is credited with the story. And look, and people at other networks who are coming after us, there is some crossover, and I think feathers do get ruffled from time to time. No, it was my story. Well, I tweeted it first. No, I had it first. And what happens, and Adam can speak to this better than I can, is once a major story, you have a story, you have to call it in and clear it. And that's why you'll see when Adam tweets something, as filed to ESPN. And that's what they call it. And then, you see it scrolling across the bottom line on television, breaking news animation, it's on Twitter. That's, in essence, one press button to Adam's finger. But the sourcing is very tricky. I don't know how they do it. I got to fill in on the insiders at Super Bowl. So I got to sit in a scenario like this with Adam, with Mort, and with John Clayton. And all I can think about is, do you know how much information these guys all know? And of course, the best stories are never allowed to be told on TV. The stories they could tell might blow everything.
What are your thoughts on fantasy sports, and do you partake?
I think that fantasy football, having partaken in it the last 3 years, has been one of the single biggest factors as to why football has exploded in popularity. And if you play fantasy football, you'd understand it. And when someone asked us our favorite team before, actually I should have answered. It was a mistake on my part. My favorite teams are my fantasy football teams. That really is true, and it's amazing. When I was in high school, I used to get so emotional over Yankee wins and Knick wins and Jet wins, and so dejected when they lost. And when you get into the business, you lose that. And I was so happy to have lost it. I haven't felt those feelings in 25 years. And then all of a sudden, my fantasy football team is losing, and I'm getting beat, and I couldn't believe how disappointed and dejected. And I said, this reminds me of being a fan. And there's a part of me that wants to give it up for that reason, because the emotional highs and lows. And literally, I will go to sleep on Tuesday night and wake up at 4 in the morning because I can't wait to see if I got a swing out the waiver. It's
For me, and I'll be straight with you, I've never played 1 minute of fantasy sports in any of the sports. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I'm not sure it's a good thing for myself. The people who are very involved in fantasy sports, who are in our industry, says, you know what it does? It forces you to stay sharp and gives you some extra knowledge of players and leagues that you might have not looked up, but because you're interested because it's your fantasy team. But quite frankly, I have tried to separate. Look, I love what I do for a living, but that's my job. And the difference also with our jobs, Adam really is sort of on call 24/7. If something breaks, that's his department. For me, when I'm not working, look, I'll watch the big game at home for sure, but my phone isn't always on, and I am not necessarily glued to a game I'm not interested in. And there'll be, a day where I won't watch any sports at all, and I'll have to catch up the next day before I go back to work on the weekend. So I kind of, I like the detachment from sports. Sports is my job. It's a big part of my life, but it's not my entire life. And my wife hates sports, which is odd to believe, right? But again, it's kind of nice because when I go home, I don't have to talk about Peyton Manning. I did that all the time. I don't want to talk to my wife about sports. I like to talk about something else. So I understand the value of fantasy. It's been great for sports, especially. I mean, the NFL gets every break and gets everything right, and fantasy football is another example of the monster that the NFL is.
Just to piggyback on that real quick, with overkill and the NFL getting everything right, what are your feelings on the NFL going to a full Thursday night schedule, and now there's talk of Tuesday night? The NFL has been the most popular sport in America for many years. Do you think the full Thursday night schedule and then opening up on Wednesday is going to take away from that popularity?
I see Adam shaking his head already, so we might disagree here. For me, I love the games, and another night is a good thing. Is a good thing for me because there are 7 or 8 games on Sunday, so I'm going to lose one Sunday game. I've still got the 6 or 7 other games. I'm good with it. I don't want to see it on Tuesday, but Thursday night, it's another great reason to watch. And as long as it stays on the NFL Network, which a lot of people can't get, they have to watch SportsCenter for the highlights that game. And therefore, another win for ESPN.
It's not me shaking my head, it's my wife.
Oh.
She's not thrilled about the fact that there's going to be another night. She didn't even know. Football, year round. And I think that's my bigger thing is that we immerse ourselves so much in our jobs that now here's 3 more hours on a Thursday night that I have to pay attention to what's going on. And I would rather have that Thursday night to hang out with my family, to read, to spend time with them, and now there's going to be another football game on. So I don't love that. And I don't think it's great for the game. I think it distorts the weeks and it's difficult for the players. That's not my biggest concern, but I just don't think that's good for the league in general. And I think that when you start to dilute some of the specialness, some of the unique qualities of having a game on Monday night and Sunday night, well now it's Thursday, so now it's not as unique anymore. So you lose some of that, and that's why I'm not a big fan. I see it as a pure money grab by the owners, which is what it is.
And for the young people in the audience, I don't want you to get the wrong impression. Like, we absolutely love sports, and we do love it all the time. But I do remember having an internship. A guy by the name of Steve Malsberg, who's a longtime sportscaster in New York, and he's gotten into politics. He would take me to some of the games with him, and I remember being in the press box at Yankee Stadium, or Shea Stadium, and some of the old curmudgeon-y writers would be up there. They were praying for a rainout. They didn't care who won. They didn't care what happened in the game. They just wanted the game to be over. And they wanted a 2-hour and 25-minute baseball game, which, as you know, rarely happens now. And I remember sitting there and saying, I don't understand. Again, I might have been just in college, or just out of college, and I couldn't understand. Wait a second, you're getting paid to go to this game. Millions of people would love to be in your position, and all you want is the game to be over. And I sort of swore I would never be that guy. I would never get to that point. But now, after 20 years in the industry, 25 years in the industry, you still want greatness. You still want to see greatness. I never want to see a rainout. I never want to go that distance. But if the game can take 245, I'm good with that too.
I can't believe how many people you work with and how much of a vision you had to do what you are doing. That blows me away.
I got lucky in just about every way, and that goes back to, in broadcasting, I was prepared to take every small job I possibly could. I would have gone to market 3,000 to take the job. And I remember coming out of Oswego, the Binghamton Rangers, the American Hockey League, the play-by-play job was open. And I sent a tape and I interviewed for it. The job paid $12,000. It was a year-round job. It was not just the broadcasting. It was sales. It was public relations. And the kicker to the story was, I remember on the road, you'd have to room with the bus driver. All these very attractive things. And I still desperately wanted that job. And I sent my tape in. I was gung-ho. Absolutely, I want the job. And I finished 6th. 6th. So imagine there are 5 people who also wanted the job and were better than me for it, and I was very disappointed not to get it.
Well, let me tell you, you will encounter, everybody will encounter, if you go into this field or many fields, rejection all along the way. And I tell people all the time that there is a bar on the Michigan campus named Dominic's that for every rejection letter you have, we give you a free drink. And I tell people, I could have owned the bar. I had that rejection letters. And when I got hired for my first job after 2 full years of rejection letters, I remember being taken to the airport by the man that hired me. And we were literally pulling up to the gate. I mean, I could visualize it is so vivid. And I remember saying to him, by the way, what am I going to be making in salary? I had no idea. And he told me that I was going to be making $22,500. And I looked at him and I said, $22,500? And he said, is that enough? And I said, I'm rich. And he said,
What do you think is the best fit for Peyton Manning?
I haven't been asked that question in 90 minutes.
Adam certainly knows more about it than I do. I'm sure of that. What I would say, and I'm not sure this is best for Peyton Manning, but I think it would be best for the Miami Dolphins to get Peyton Manning. That, to me, for on the field, off the field, for a former glory NFL franchise that has fallen off the face of the map in South Florida, that has just about disappeared to the point where they're giving away tickets there. That's exactly what Miami, which is star-driven, needs. Again, I'm not sure that's the best thing for Peyton, but that is the best thing for the Miami Dolphins.
I'll give you facts. Fact, when Peyton Manning flew back from Indianapolis yesterday and landed in Miami and all of a sudden had every newscopter in Miami chasing him, and he had to get out of his car to give comments to these media reporters that were chasing him down, he was freaked out and it spooked him on Miami. That's a fact, okay? Fact, he wants to play in the AFC over the NFC. That doesn't mean he won't go to the NFC, but he would prefer to stay in the AFC. He's spooked by Miami right now. I'm just saying, watch out. He'd love to go to Houston. Not going to happen. Watch out for Denver. Watch out for Kansas City. And then he's got to make a decision about whether he'd rather go to one of those 2 places or go to the NFC conference that he'd rather not be in and go play for a team like either Arizona or maybe even San Francisco.
So you think Peyton Manning would be okay being the backup to Tim Tebow?
Does that get frustrating to work with a pro athlete who crosses over and they just can't get it, and the company just keeps holding them on for that name value?
They don't hold on.
Move on to the next
It
guy.
really doesn't happen that often, but again, you see star players. I'm not going to name names here, but big name players who just aren't very good on television. They just aren't. And usually a year or 2 will go by, and you get the name value, and then we move on. And then you find players who are marginal players who are excellent analysts. And I think Sean Salisbury is actually a very good example of that. Sean was a career backup quarterback. I thought he was very good on TV.
Tim Hasselbeck.
In hockey, one of my best friends was Barry Melrose. Very marginal player.
Very.
And he will tell you, is obviously an unbelievable hockey analyst on television. So, and to that it speaks that the people who are not superstar players, like some of the names you mentioned, they've always had to work harder anyway. So therefore, when they get into this business, they work harder there as well.
Steve, you mentioned before that you root for the good guys. Who are the good guys? Who do you consider to be your closest friends, like athlete-wise?
I'll tell you what, we lost the NHL, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. It was a very weepy day in Bristol. A lot of us are still crying about it. And when I was doing play-by-play and traveling, being on the road, you get to be around some of the players. And that's when you get to know them. But as time has passed now, the guys I was probably closest to and actually have their cell phone numbers, they've all retired. So they are of little use to me professionally, but they still remain my friends. But you can just see in a locker room when you do go in the locker room. That's also something that in my position, I rarely get to go out now. I rarely get to leave the studio. And nothing bothers me more than a guy who is sitting behind a desk on whatever network or whatever local station, and is just making fun of the athletes. Look at that guy, he just fell down, slipped, lost the ball, in the sun, the glare, whatever. Look at that, what a terrible throw, what was he thinking? It's real easy to be cute and clever when you've had hours to work on exactly what you're going to say, and you're wearing makeup, and you're sitting behind a desk, nice, safe, cozy Bristol, Connecticut. It's a whole different animal when you have to see the guy face to face, and you have to walk into the locker room or see him after a practice, and that also is the power of ESPN. If you're on a local television station in New York, and you make some kind of wisecrack about Tim Tebow, well, you know what? Tim Tebow's never going to see that. But on ESPN, Tim Tebow's watching. So that's some of the power that ESPN and the face-to-face relationships that you speak of that are very, very important. It's important for anchors like myself to stay in touch and to still get into the locker room and remember how difficult these games are. Because if they weren't difficult, you know what? We'd all be doing it.
The best part of my job before I went to TV, and a lot of people want to go be anchors, they want to go anchor the Today Show, Good Morning America. I worked for a newspaper for 16 years, and for 16 years, I learned what angered athletes and coaches, what pleased them, what you could do, what you couldn't do, how to work a locker room, how to understand the NFL, how it works as a league, and I had to face these people every day. And so that was training, unbelievable training for what I do today, because I've covered so many of these stories and dealt with so many of these people. Well, you have to answer to them then. I don't have to do that now. But I'm aware, having done it for so long, that I wouldn't say something to embarrass them. I just wouldn't do it.
My personal rule, and then again, and remember, the key to our industry is inform and entertain. That's sort of the credo, and you can decide which order that goes in. I'm not sure which one is more important, but it has to be entertaining. And so we do so many highlights over the course of an hour and a half show. If you were playing, you can't describe every single ground ball to shortstop the same exact way. So you try to make it a little more entertaining and have a little more fun with it. But my personal philosophy on that is I'm not going to take a shot at an athlete, a professional athlete. I'm not going to make fun of a ball that goes through a third baseman's legs, a bad hop, lost at the lights, whatever. My personal thing on that is if I believe that the athlete himself would say, hey, you know what, I made a terrible play there, that's totally on me, then maybe I'll have some fun. But unless I'm absolutely sure that player would criticize themselves, then there's no way I'm going to get after it.
One, how does Mel Kiper know everything about every college player ever? And two, did John Clayton really ever have a ponytail? Real quick, who's getting RG first?
John Clayton has never had a ponytail. No, Kiper Jr., that's his job year-round. I mean, just like Steve's job is to be an anchor, my job is to deal with football information. Mel Kiper's job is to study football players year-round, and he's got a great memory and a great recall, and he loves it, and he cares about it. Anybody that loves their job inevitably is better at their job, and he loves his job.
And he created the position right before him. I mean, that industry. I mean, there are now people just following in line, and we've got other people. Todd McShay has done an unbelievable job in the draft too, and now they work together. But I mean, as far as I know, Mel was the first really to
on air.
Yeah.
There was a guy, Joel Buxbaum, that did it for Pro Football Weekly. That was literally like a 5'3" kind of guy that lived in his mother's basement in an apartment in Brooklyn.
Not there's anything wrong with that.
But the guy was a unique kind of guy, and he studied films, and I know coaches in the league that would call him and say, what do you think of this? Oh yeah, that guy against Tennessee Chattanooga on that 2nd and 7 play in the second quarter. I mean, they tell me stories about this. It's unbelievable, this recall. But people that love what they do like that care. I mean, you can ask me about stories. I can tell you how every story broke. I remember that. I remember them all. So you just, that's how it works.
Have you ever had a problem with the teleprompter? Not working.
Who put you up to that? All right, I'll just go through this briefly. I had one small faux pas with the teleprompter. Maurice Hurst of the New England Patriots. He was suffering from a bulging disc in his neck. The teleprompter said disc, D-I-S-C. I missed by a letter. And Keith said to me, Steve, do we have any video of that? And I really thought I was going to get fired. I was filling in for Dan Patrick on The Big Show. And Norby Williamson, who's my boss to this day, our boss, and he called me up and said, hey, that was some of the funniest TV I've ever seen. Keep up the great work. That is my teleprompter invention. But it was not the prompter's fault, it was my fault.
What was the biggest story you've ever broken, and what are the chances the Jets get Peyton Manning?
I don't see the Jets getting Peyton Manning. I don't see it. It's not to say it can't happen, because I will tell you this also, in this industry you learn what you don't think is going to happen on one day, you wake up the very next and you're like, whoop, this happened. So things change, but my assessment today, as we sit here, with the things that I know, I don't see the Jets signing him. Now, maybe at the last moment things fall through for him in certain places, it doesn't work out, he does go to the Jets make run. The Jets have to be very careful because they can't really hotly pursue him because of the Sanchez situation. It becomes very delicate, you have to be very careful. There are a few teams in that situation. Biggest story I've ever broken, I would tell you the biggest story I've ever broken always is the next one. Once you break a story, you're on to the next one, period. I can tell you there's some things kicking around right now that have me very antsy, I'll just tell you that. Very antsy.
There'll be no follow-up questions to that. Let me just stop you right now, he's not going to tell you.
I would say this, well, if things hold up, in the next 4 or 5 days, Steve, would you say we got a big one coming?
I would say this would be a big story.
Question about the NFL. Stevie and I are the big football watchers, and we want to know about the tip of the iceberg with the bounty situation in New Orleans. If that's just the beginning, and has Dominic still gotten that memo way back when?
Well, I think that you're going to see some huge stiff penalties for the Saints. I think Sean Payton is going to get suspended for a long time. I think Mickey Loomis, the general manager, is going to get suspended a long time. I think Greg Williams is going away for a minimum of a year. I think there'll be a few players, defensive captains, that may get suspended. And I think that decision, another big story, will be coming down in the next couple of weeks. But there'll be some huge suspensions there. I believe big.
Steve, can you discuss the difference of preparation between the play-by-play that you used to do and the sports center that you do now? It would seem that there's a lot more level of preparation in the play-by-play aspect. And would you ever consider going back to play-by-play?
It's a really good question regarding the preparation. I did college football for maybe 5 or 6 years, and if I would have had 3 weeks time to prepare, I could have spent every hour doing that as well. The information you get in college football, the size of the media guides, the fact that these teams have 100 players, some of the colleges, they will travel 100, but the home team will have 100 players wearing the same number because there just aren't enough numbers to go around with the retired numbers. The conference calls with the coordinators and the head coaches, and then meeting the players. The preparation for play-by-play, especially in football, and how Tirico does, 3 sporting events a week is beyond everyone in the industry. To really do it right, the preparation for one single play-by-play event is just a monstrosity. And the difference on preparing for SportsCenter is you really can't, because as I was saying before, we have that meeting at 5 o'clock. We think we have the lead game, but 75% of the time, our plan at 5 o'clock is completely different than what it is at 10:30 that same night. The games that night dictate. And a little trick on SportsCenter, every lead-in that we write is written as if going into the night. We never write the lead-in as if the game's already been played, simply because we're writing that stuff at 8 o'clock. I can't wait until 10:30 to start writing the show. And the games are going to overtime or extra innings. Games are constantly ending on our watch. Preparation-wise, you need to be aware of who the players are and the storylines going in. And every game has a certain storyline to it, but we never know what's going to happen. And when you see the highlights on SportsCenter, I am seeing them with you for the absolute first time. People think I get to see that 3 or 4 times. Hey, slow that down. Let me see that again. Absolutely not. The difference is I know what's coming. I've got a piece of paper. It's called a shot sheet in front of me, and that lists everything that's coming. That's this guy hit a home run, that made the score this, it's the top of the 7th inning. So at least I know the next play coming, but I am watching that highlight with you for the first time. So the next time I make a mistake, if you can cut me a break and understand that I also am watching that for the first time just like you are. But last thing on this, I remember doing play-by-play, hockey and college football, and I would pour, I don't know, 15 hours into preparation, certainly for football, and let's say 5 or 6 for a hockey game. And I knew everything about those 2 teams for that one game, and then SportsCenter makes that highlight, 45 seconds. So, and I'd be like, wow, we sort of missed the storyline. Again, I know everything about it, but in SportsCenter, we have to do every single game. Therefore, we can't attribute the amount of time we'd probably like to, and that's how some of the storylines get lost in the cracks. But SportsCenter, we do it better than anybody else does, and have for many years. And as you see, many people have come after and tried to recreate the show, and have not been able to. And that's really a credit to all of them.
Hey, you hear Steve talking about that passion, that preparation. It's just unbelievable. The people that work at our place, Steve is unbelievably gifted, and it is an honor to work with him and all the people there. They're just so many great people. It's an incredible place.
And young people. I mean, we have a production assistant position for those out of college, and it's a great way into the business. And as I just mentioned before, new people, young people bring great energy to the building and great ideas. And you're certainly a big part of the demographic, so you know what people your own age are looking for in a television show. And that's something, not right now, but after college, something that would be well worth your time to look into, the production assistant job. What a great avenue to enter the sports broadcasting.
Some exclusive behind-the-scenes footage at my former high school, as well as Adam Schefter of ESPN and Steve Levy of ESPN. Guys, how was it out there to return to your alma mater high school?
Well, it was great to come home. They say you can't go home again, but you can. And it was great seeing everybody. The enthusiasm for Kennedy was great to see, and the enthusiasm for sports, and the jobs that Adam and I do. So it was great to come back.
Chef?
It was great to be here. There was a feeling of warmth that rushes over your body. I mean, it comes back to you when you're driving up. You haven't been back here in so long. And to sit next to Steve on the stage really was an honor and a privilege.
Well, it's a privilege to be standing next to you guys and really look up to the work that you guys do at ESPN and Class X Sports. It's an honor to be looking up to you guys and hopefully take Class X Sports to that next level and what you guys were able to accomplish in your 25 years in the industry. It was a great time to see Chef come back to his roots, as well as Steve Levy, and just funny, genuine, class act guys that are in the industry of sports. So it was a pleasure. From Class Act Sports, I'm Jared Ginsburg. We'll see you out there, folks. Until next time, it's a wrap.